Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If everybody would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. Good evening. Welcome to the December action meeting. I want to remind everybody we'll be webcasting live tonight. So all you young ones, you're going to be famous tonight. Mr. Sugars, would you take roll, please?
Mr. Goodwin.
Here.
Mrs. Judge.
Here.
Mrs. Matlack.
Here.
Mrs. Seidel.
Here.
Mrs. Scarpolino.
Here.
Mrs. Schultz.
Here.
Mr. Tomlinson.
Here.
Dr. Wong.
Here.
Dr. Dickinson.
Here. First order of business tonight is the approval of the minutes. For tonight, we have the regular action meeting dated November 28th, 2017. The board work session special action meeting dated November 14th, 2017. The special action meeting dated November 4th, 2017. The executive sessions dated November 4th, 2017, November 14th, 2017, and November 28th, 2017. Any errors, additions, omissions from anybody? No? Okay, seeing none, Mrs. Sugars. Oh, sorry. Do I have a motion to adopt? Sorry. Mrs. Matlack and Mrs. Seidel. Mrs. Sugars.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Judge.
Yes to all.
Mrs. Matlack.
Yes.
Mrs. Seidel.
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpolino.
Abstain as to the special meeting dated November 4th, 2017, and the executive session dated November 4th, 2017, as I was absent. Yes to the rest.
Mrs. Schultz.
Yes.
Mr. Tomlinson.
Yes to all.
Dr. Wong.
I need to abstain from the November 28th regular action meeting, and yes to the rest.
Dr. Dickinson.
Yes to all. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Malash for our presentation this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Dickinson. I'm very excited to have Mrs. Wilson introduce Mr. Turner, our good friend from Cherry Hill Rotary, and some very special students that are with us this evening for a dictionary presentation. So, Mr. Turner, if you'll meet us up at the microphone. And then, boys and girls that are coming to receive the dictionaries, you're going to come up, we're going to do some pictures, we're going to talk, and you're going to come around and shake all the board members' hands. And afterwards, Mrs. Wilson's going to take you out in the hallway with Mr. Turner, and we're going to get some pictures for you. You all are welcome to come back and spend the rest of the meeting with us. I always like to see people, but you do not need to feel pressured. You have to come back in here for the rest of the meeting. Okay? All right?
Good evening. There we go. I just want to welcome everybody again for coming tonight. We have our third graders from Barton Elementary School, Hannah Mai, Gina Bean, Julia Bracey, Bradford Bergstrom, Aiden Cream, and Chloe Blocker. So thank you very much for representing all of the third graders in the district. And I will hand the microphone over to Mr. Bill Turner, as Dr. Balash said, Rotary President, to talk a little bit about the donation.
I will just first start with, I am Bill Turner, 9 Pendleton Drive, Cherry Hill. I see we have new board members since last year. This is, I guess, the 11th or 12th year we have done this project. And we do it in conjunction with CHEF, and we've distributed a dictionary to every third grader. I always ask everybody, do you have any idea how many third graders we have? And Don knows this because he supplies me with the numbers, so I have my cheat sheet here. Anyway, there's 779 this year. People are always astounded when you say third graders, and you say, you know, it's almost 800, and you say, that's a lot of students. The dictionary project, for those that have never been exposed to it, is a corporation in itself, out of Charleston, South Carolina. And they they sell the dictionaries and that, and then they use organizations as the distributors. And a lot of the distributors are Rotary clubs. So it's countrywide in the millions that we do this every year. So there's other organizations that do it also. Some of the PTAs do it, and Lions, all the other clubs. But Rotary is the biggest one. So tonight we're here to provide dictionaries, and I got more children than I've got dictionaries, because I thought the number was 5, and I brought 5. But we will have them for you when we visit your school, and Barton happens to be one of the schools that our club does, so we will. So I don't know how two of you are going to have to share a dictionary. Okay. So it is designed for 3rd graders at that level, and every year they add a few words and take a few out. So we have to be careful we don't mix years, because we give these out. We don't just pass them out in the school. We actually have group meetings in the schools and go through a little dog and pony show and actually give out the dictionaries, make sure they understand how to use them and things like that. So we will, again, wait until January, but then we'll make the arrangements with the individual schools and present the dictionaries to each of the students. So that's my spiel. Me too. I never Thank you, Bill. We are always incredibly grateful to Mr. Turner and to the Cherry Hill Rotary organization. Bill certainly lives out their motto, service above self. We have Rotary Interact clubs at both of our high schools. The high school East one started last year. They're in their 2nd year, but they're very involved within the community, and the Rotary Club certainly gives a lot back to our children at each of the different levels. So we thank Mr. Turner and the Cherry Hill Rotary. Thank you, Dr. Dickinson.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Malash. We'll now move into our correspondence portion of our agenda. I believe we have correspondence. Who would like to go first? Mrs. Seidel.
Thank you, Dr. Dickinson. So Mrs. Scarpolino and I attended a seminar on Saturday, December 2nd, entitled Preparing for Bargaining. It was offered by New Jersey School Boards Association, and it was the first in a series of 3 seminars to assist school districts and school boards to negotiate effectively in the upcoming bargaining rounds. And I'm just going to give you a little bit about the morning part of the session, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Scarpolino, who's going to talk a little bit about the afternoon session. So the morning session focused really on what the law is and what the law requires. Talked about the New Jersey Employer-Employee Relations Act, also known as NJSA 34, defined that, and how that works with PERC, which is the Public Employment Relations Commission. I thought they gave a really good example that was really helpful for me, so I thought I'd share it with all of you. They said you could look at NJSA 34 like the legislative branch of the government, and PERC, the Public Employment Relations Commission, like the executive branch of the government, and then case law as the judicial branch. So that was a helpful little analogy for me. Then we talked a little bit about what PERC law requires in negotiations. Just a couple of highlights: joint decision-making of terms and conditions of employment. Both sides, both the school boards and the teacher association, can choose their own representatives, and we have to agree to meet at reasonable times and negotiate in good faith. We talked a little bit about what happens after if we can't come to a settlement, and that's called an impasse. And they talked through the three steps: mediation, fact-finding, and super conciliation. And then we spend some time talking about what is negotiated. Sorry, page here. There are really three categories. There are mandatory topics that must be negotiated, such as salary and benefits. There are preempted or illegal topics which cannot be negotiated, such as the minimum number of sick days offered and FMLA. And then there's what they called sort of split topics that both parties discuss, for example, when to make up snow days. And then the last piece of the morning session talked about what the responsibilities of the bargaining team were, specifically who's on the team, how many people, the role of the team, and the goals of the team. And really, there's 4 goals: coordination, commitment, consistency, and confidentiality. And all of those things, they said, make for an effective bargaining team. I'll turn it over to Mrs. Scarpellino.
Thank you, Mrs. Seidel. So the second half of the day was really kind of getting more into the kind of nitty-gritty and meat of the negotiation process. So I'm going to speak in much more generalities because we don't want to give away any secrets that we learned. But the first part of the afternoon session involved costing out the contract, and they talked about data gathering and identifying all the economic items that would be potentially part of it. They went into detail about how to read and evaluate the scattergrams, and I think Lisa and I both felt we kind of had a leg up on other people there because we had Mrs. Sugars, who had already helped us a great deal with that, because there's a lot of math involved in that. It's definitely not my strong suit, but I felt fairly comfortable with the information that was being presented. They talked about making sure you just, looked at the total compensation when you're analyzing it, because you're going to be paying for that, so you need to really take it all into consideration. And then they gave some examples and went over some problems with that. The next part had to do with developing and writing the board's proposal. They talked about needing to develop the goals first as a board so that everyone is sort of on the same page, even though there is a negotiating committee who's authorized to do the negotiating for the board. Went into some detail about writing a proposal, the tips on things to look at. Some things are fairly obvious, but then they also talked about some other things that would be important to go back and look at that I know I myself hadn't thought of, and I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Again, no secrets, so I'm not going to say exactly what, but they talked about the importance of language in the contract, right? The words have meaning, and you want to be as precise as possible so you can avoid any kind of conflicts down the road. We, again, did exercises involving different languages to see what worked, what didn't work, what was the most precise way of doing things, which I think was all helpful. And a lot of this information's in the booklet they gave us, so something we can refer back to, a little bit about the do's and don'ts. And then just generally how the negotiating committee must have the trust of the full board to really be able to do the work. It was interesting, as always, when I go to these things, to hear some of the questions or some of the comments from other participants about how they might not have that going on in their districts or other issues. And I always feel, I think Mrs. Seidel and I were both saying this, how lucky we are here in Cherry Hill that we don't have some of the issues that these other boards have going on. Not just within the board, but with our administration. And in fact, I have to say, Miss Adrian did get a shout out from some of the presenters from the School Board Association, because I guess they've encountered her at other meetings and workshops, and so I just wanted to give her the kudos that she got. And again, that's about it, because I can't go into any of the details. Well, thank you.
Thank you, ladies. I believe Mrs. Judge has something for us.
I have my usual report regarding Garden State Coalition of Schools. Our last meeting was on December 6th in East Brunswick. This month's guest speaker was Tom Byrne. He is the chairman of the New Jersey State Investment Council. And I also heard him speak at the December 2nd New Jersey School Board Legislative Committee meeting that I'm a part of. His conversation at both meetings were regarding the pension, the huge pension issue in New Jersey. He spoke about so many numbers, it was overwhelming. But in a nutshell, I'm pretty sure he stated that we have an unfunded pension liability of like $90 billion. It just was just nuts. And the state has been contributing approximately $5 billion a year. Increasing payments started in 2011 with the hopes of fully funding the pension in 7 years, the pension program, and that hasn't happened, as we know. He spoke at length regarding healthcare and healthcare costs. It really was, both meetings I sat there just, overwhelmed with all the numbers he was dropping, and he knows what he's talking about. And I didn't look at all my notes much today, quite honestly, for this report, but it really was overwhelming. And New Jersey really, we have a problem with the pension issue in the state. The next Garden State meeting is Wednesday, January 24th. The speaker at that's going to be Judy Savage. She is the executive director of the New Jersey Council of Vocational and Technical Schools, which is, it's going to be interesting. And the February 21st meeting is going to be an evening meeting here in Cherry Hill, February 21st, 7 o'clock. I was not able to attend the dinner, the school board's dinner. I was ill the night that was in Deptford on December 4th, but I have signed up for the next dinner on January 25th, which is a Thursday in Sicklerville. So that dinner subject is developing partnerships. So if anybody wants to sign up and go, I'll be driving. Any questions? Seeing none, back to you, Dr. Dickinson.
Any other correspondence? No? Well, all three of you, thank you very much for taking the time out to not only attend those meetings, but bring that valuable information back and share it with us. I think it's very worthwhile for all of us. And again, thank you. Okay, so we'll move into our high school board rep reports. And I guess tonight we'll start with Josh from East.
Hello, esteemed members of the board. The calendar year is wrapping up and the holiday season is in full swing. As it has only been 3 weeks since my last report and winter isn't a particularly busy time for many activities like sports, my address tonight will be brief. However, as always, I encourage you to ask questions about topics covered here and other areas of interest. East Drama finished its production of It's a Wonderful Life. This well-known holiday classic saw great success in terms of attendance and performance during its 4 nights. Additionally, the Thespian Society reached its goal of raising $8,000 for hurricane relief. With the end of the production, auditions for Music Man, the spring musical, begin soon. Students will have a chance to engage in workshops before break in order to learn the material. East Performing Arts Community is not yet done for the calendar year, however. Tomorrow, our instrumental groups will hold their seasonal concert at 7 p.m. Additionally, the Fraternal Order of Police holiday party occurred yesterday. Over 200 students from both East and West prepare decorations weeks in advance for a holiday celebration for developmentally disabled children. The party was held at Cherry Hill's own Crown Plaza Hotel in order to accommodate the more than 900 guests who greatly appreciated it. It is a very rewarding activity, and how sought after an invitation to attend the party is a testament to that. The East Robotics team also had has had an exciting season thus far. They've competed at 3 competitions with champions, finalists, and other qualifying award winners coming out of each. All teams that have competed are qualified for the state competition, which is held at East in late February. However, it seems that more underclassmen will be able to attend competitions before the end of the regular season. East swimming and basketball have not had very long seasons thus far, but have both competed very well. Boys and girls basketball have both taken good early season wins, as have our swimming teams. Wrestler Blake Impagliazzo took third at the Nottingham tournament recently as well. Additionally, East hosted over 20 Masters of Education students from the University of Pennsylvania. They came to observe our instruction in social studies, and we were glad to be available as a model for educators of the future. On January 5th, the first Friday after winter break, the freshman class will hold their annual dance, and on January 12th, the SGA lip sync competition will return for its second concurrent year. Teams, however, must sign up before winter break. Although there was a good showing for the first after a hiatus last year, SGA hopes for even more students to sign up to compete or to show up and watch their peers dance their hearts out. This Friday is the last day before winter break. Although for many of our students, the winter celebrations will have already ended. All students will be looking forward to a break before the last month of the second marking period. Thank you, and if you have any questions, you can ask them now.
Thank you, Josh. Looks like we have Gay with us this evening from East. So turn the mic over to you. West, sorry.
Good evening, Dr. Malash, Dr. Dickinson, Mr. Goodwin, members of the Board of Education, and stakeholders. As a senior, it saddens me to admit that half of the school year is over. However, I am excited by not only the winter break, but the new year brings a fresh start and an opportunity to spend time with loved ones. West hosted the SAT on December 2nd and the ACT on December 9th. I was glad to see students taking steps towards their higher education goals. On December 11th at 5:30 p.m., the holiday lighting ceremony was held at the community center. Cherry Hill High School West Chamber Singers performed holiday classics. I represented West in the presentation on Kwanzaa. The entire event was filled with holiday cheer. A Christmas Carol was performed on December 16th at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m., December 17th at 2 p.m. West will be holding auditions for the Phantom of the Opera, and the cast will be selected before winter break. The FOP party was held on December 18th. Thank you to the Cherry Hill High School West students who dedicated their time to decorating and volunteering during the event. On December 19th, the Spanish classes at West will donate toys to the children at the Mi Casita Daycare Center. The winter sports season at High School West has begun. The bowling team just started another successful season and competed in the Holiday Bowl. Winter track and boys and girls basketball was scheduled to begin on December 15th. Unfortunately, the games were postponed due to the weather conditions. The wrestling team began the season by winning the Princeton High School Invitational with 6 individual champions. The teams are competing with pride and enthusiasm, and they are exhibiting the West Way in their sportsmanship. This concludes my December report, and I hope everyone has a happy holiday. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gay from West. Excellent job, both of you. Thank you for sharing. Okay, first public discussion. Your comments must be regarding items on the action agenda this evening. When you come to the mic, please state your name and address. You will have 3 minutes for your remarks. Please note that the green light will turn yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining. The light will turn red when your 3 minutes are up. Any public comment on anything on the action agenda this evening? No? Okay. Seeing none, I'll turn it over to Dr. Malash.
Thank you, Dr. Dickinson, and thank you, Gay and Josh, for your presentations about the high schools and what's going on. Again, one of the greatest things that goes on in our board meetings every month is having the updates from the kids at the high schools. It has been incredibly busy since the last time that we were all together in an action meeting at the end of November. December goes very, very quickly for us as a month. And as the kids said, we are literally almost halfway through the academic year. The semester will end at the end of January. In fact, at the high school level, the teachers are busily preparing second marking period interims. Report cards have been completed, information is going out. We completed our conferences at the elementary level and the middle level at the beginning of December. It always amazes me how fast the academic year goes because there's a regular cycle of how things take place. And I want to encourage everyone to take some time this week and especially next week during the break to breathe, right? Step back, relax, get some fresh air, take a walk, see a neighbor, meet somebody outside, and just breathe, right? Use a kind word, share a kind word, share a smile. And that's one of the things that all of us can do on a regular basis. It's free, and it makes a huge difference. Selfishly, one of the things that I always get to do is travel around to all 19 of our schools. And there's nothing like walking through the hallway or walking through the cafeteria or into a classroom. You smile at a child and say hello. Kids' eyes just light up and they say hello back. Doesn't matter who you are or who they are. Talk to people, exchange that as we go forward. If you have not had an opportunity to get out and see the concerts, please make sure you check the calendar. As Josh said, tomorrow night over at High School East, I'm eagerly anticipating the instrumental concert. It's always a great night of music. The shows were incredible, A Christmas Carol, and It's a Wonderful Life. To realize as you sit there in the audience that it's high school theater and it's student-produced theater is just absolutely incredible. Grateful to the adult advisors and certainly the children and the families that are involved to support that. So as we look into January, we will return on January 2nd. It is a full day of school, as is this Friday. December 22nd is a full day of school. Mrs. Wilson has been busily putting that out on our social media, but this Friday is a full day of school, and we will be back together very quickly on January 2nd. But please take the time, be thankful for those that you get to spend time with. I'm grateful to you as the board members for the time that you dedicate and for the work that you do. Because once we get back in January, it is going to be busy times, and we're looking forward to all of the events that will take place.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Malash. Lots of good stuff, as usual. I just wanted to say, on behalf of the Board of Education, I want to wish everybody a happy holidays. I want to thank everybody for what they have done for the district and wish everybody a safe and prosperous holiday and New Year. We'll now move into our action agenda, and I'll ask Mrs. Seidel to please move the C&I agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Dickinson. The superintendent recommends and I move the following. Number 1, approval of out-of-district student placements for the 2017-2018 school year. Number 2, approval of attendance at conferences and workshops for the 2017-2018 school year. And you have a yellow sheet in front of you with the addition of item number 3, resolution approving rider to services agreement. Do I have a second? Mrs. Judge, any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Mrs. Seidel,
Yes to all.
Mr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Judge,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Matlack,
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpolino,
Yes.
Mrs. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Tomlinson,
Yes.
Dr. Wong,
Yes.
Dr. Dickinson.
Yes to all. Mr. Goodwin, would you please move the BNF agenda?
Yes, I will. The superintendent recommends and I move the following. 1, financial reports. 2, resolutions. 3, resolutions for the award of bids. 4, resolution for the award of change orders. 5, resolution for the award of transportation. 6, resolution approving transfer of funds to allow the proper funding of construction project, the crawl space ventilation and modification at Barton Elementary School. And number 7, acceptance of donations. Do I have a second? Ms. Schultz. Ms. Schultz. Any questions? If not, I'll turn to Mrs. Sugars.
Mr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Judge,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Matlack,
Yes.
Mrs. Seidel,
Need to abstain with respect to CDW on the bill list. Yes to the rest.
Mrs. Scarpolino,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Schultz,
I need to abstain to Beato Home Health on the bill list. Yes to the rest.
Mr. Tomlinson,
Abstaining from Bancroft NeuroHealth on the bill list. Yes to the remainder.
Dr. Wong,
Yes.
Dr. Dickinson.
Yes to all. Mrs. Judge, would you please move the HR agenda?
Yes, I will, Dr. Dickinson. The superintendent recommends and I move the following. Number 1, termination of employment certificated. Number 2, termination of employment non-certificated. Number 3, appointment certificated. Number 4, appointments non-certificated. Number 5, leaves of absence certificated. Number 6, leaves of absence non-certificated. Number 7, other compensation certificated. And we have a pink sheet adding to numbers 1, 2, and 3 as a handout. Do I have a second? Mrs. Scarpellino. Any questions? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Mrs. Judge?
Yes to all.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mrs. Matlack?
Yes.
Mrs. Seidel?
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpellino?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Tomlinson?
Yes to all.
Dr. Wong?
Abstaining to item 3 involving Rowan University. Yes to the rest.
Dr. Dickinson?
Yes to all. Mrs. Scarpellino, would you please move the P&L agenda?
Certainly. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, second reading of policies. Number 2, approval of harassment, intimidation, bullying investigation decisions. Do I have a second? Mrs. Judge, are there any questions? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Mrs. Scarpellino?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mrs. Judge?
Yes.
Mrs. Matlack?
Yes.
Mrs. Seidel?
Yes.
Mrs. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Tomlinson?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
Dr. Dickinson?
Yes to all. Mrs. Matlack, would you please move the strategic planning agenda for us?
I am very excited to have something to move on the agenda this evening. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, approval of the Cherry Hill 2020 Clear Vision for the Future Plan. Do I have a second? Mrs. Seidel. Before I ask for any questions or comments, I would like to make a comment of my own. I'd like to thank the administration, Mrs. Sugars, Dr. Malash, and the rest of the administrators for all of the work that has gone into this plan to this point. And it represents not only the work and thought and vision that has gone into it to get us to this point, it clears the way for a lot of work in the future that we will all have to do together to get to that vision that we're laying out here tonight. So as chair of the Strategic Planning Committee, I'd just like to thank you for your leadership and your vision and your dedication to doing this with us. So that being said, are there any other questions or comments from the board members? Mrs. Judge.
I just had the question regarding the date, October 2nd, and your opinion, because I know it's already been moved from the September 25th to October 2nd, but not thinking about doing it on November 6th, I think it is.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Judge. So the plan leads us into the identification and the construction of referendum items. You know, and the intention to go out for referendum on October 2nd of 2018. And the reason that we selected the date of October 2nd, there's a couple of reasons behind it. First, the state tells us the dates that we can go out for election. No, November 6th is an option, right? But the state will tell us the date. So you have the general election date that you can always put a referendum question or a bond question. And then there are 4 other dates during the course of the year that you can go out and do it. In fact, in our area, Pensauken and Collingswood are going out in March, right, is theirs. The reason that we selected the fall date is because we truly want everybody in the community to focus specifically on this. There's so much critical work that has got to be done, you know, in our 19 facilities. We don't want it to get lost in the general election and a whole bunch of other stuff that's going on. I want everybody in the community talking specifically about the referendum. Everybody in the community specifically talking about the work that needs to be done within our schools. I don't want it to be something that's lost and becomes an afterthought when people go in, because there's so many other things that will be voted on. And it was moved, so the original date we talked about was September 25th. The state then adjusted because of a holiday and moved it to October the 2nd.
Thank you.
Dr. Wong.
Yeah, I just wonder whether this version is, I mean, in front of us is the complete version of the Cherry Hill Public School 2020, or is this part of it?
So this is the plan, right? This is the culmination of the last 18 months of work. The adoption of this plan is what will guide us into the work that's going to be done to construct the referendum. And in so many ways, this is the easy part of the work, you know, that you guys endeavored as a board in July of 2016 to begin the process of. that has taken us all in the meetings and the discussions and the board work to get us to where we are, to identify specific work and projects that need to be done. Now from January, once it's adopted, from January through January and February and into March, it'll be the identification of specific projects to be done within each of the 19 schools that then has to be sent to the Department of Ed to build the referendum. And this document includes I think one of the critical pieces that was done last year, which was the revision of the mission statement for the district and the statement of the beliefs that was included that were adopted at the May board meeting, and it identifies the debt and the reason why that we do this work, some categorical areas about what work is that we want to do, and then the timeline that takes us into October 2nd. Beginning January, February, and into March, we'll start to identify the specific projects that we would like to do at each one of the schools. And we'll continue that on after it's submitted to the state in March. We anticipate we'll get results, a confirmation back from the state sometime in June, and we'll be advertising and having discussions from June through October the 2nd.
Well, I still think that as a vision that we should have other aspects, instead of just how to improve the facilities, because we are talking about the future development of our schools. So I thought that the other versions or the earlier version that I see, actually of course had other aspects, but now it's become like a smaller kind of part of the whole vision.
So there are additional pieces that existed in the discussions, one of them being full-day kindergarten. We separated the discussions in October when the board made the commitment to put full-day kindergarten in all 12 of the elementary schools. So that's something that's working in parallel. Other pieces that were part of the discussions included curricular revisions, staffing, and all that kind of stuff that goes through. Some of those are not part of a large-scale plan. They're part of the annual work that is done within the school district in terms of a curricular revision cycle. We've gotten, we get updates from Dr. Mahan, from the curriculum supervisors, from Dr. Campeses on a regular basis, but that's not a separate piece that would be in this plan to go through. That's part of the yearly operational work that we do.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Mrs. Matlack?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mrs. Judge?
Yes.
Mrs. Seidel?
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpellino?
Yes.
Mrs. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Tomlinson?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
I need to abstain.
Dr. Dickinson?
Yes. We will now move into our second public discussion. You may now comment on any issue. When you come to the mic, please state your name and address. You will have 3 minutes for your remarks. So, floor is yours.
My name is Karen Hall. I'm at 1300 Paddock Way in Cherry Hill. Hello, board members. My name is Karen Hall, and my son Dylan is a senior at Cherry Hill West. Dylan has represented Cherry Hill West for the past 3 years as a springboard diver in South Jersey and New Jersey State High School Championship dive meets. Dylan has attended only 4 dive meets each year. We have been grateful the past 3 years that Cherry Hill West has supported Dylan with Coach Robertson, Coach Rogers, and Coach Halliday attending the championship meets as Dylan's district representative, while Dylan has become one of the top South Jersey high school divers. Dylan has proudly represented Cherry Hill West with his diving ability and would like to be able to compete during his final senior year at West. I have been in communication with South Jersey Diving and New Jersey State diving officials since hearing in the fall that the Board of Education no longer supported Dylan's high school diving as per BOE procedure 2431 paragraph 5. The diving officials brought up Dylan's situation at their November 30th meeting, and they do not want to see Dylan excluded from high school diving championship competition in January and February. They have informed me that divers from other high schools have parents that are board-approved representatives for their children, and precedents already exist for divers that attend high schools that do not have an official dive team on their athletic roster. I am formally asking the Cherry Hill Board of Education to consider waiving this new policy in a standalone case for Dylan, senior year, to allow myself to be his board-approved representative. And I'm willing to incur any cost of Dylan participating in 2 championship South Jersey meets on January 18th and 25th, and the New Jersey Men's State Championship meet February 27th, and I will transport him to and from the meets like I have in the previous 3 years. Linda Dubois is Secretary of South Jersey Diving and a certified New Jersey high school swim official. Welcomes you to call or email her to discuss Dylan's inclusion with New Jersey high school diving and to answer any questions that you may have. Coach Robertson, who is the boys coach for Cherry Hill West, told Dylan that she is willing to support his diving this year and would volunteer to go to the meets. She had hoped to see him through his final year of high school diving. We appreciate your consideration on this matter and look forward to providing you with additional information if needed. Thank you. And I've also brought the New Jersey head meet official from the state of New Jersey to talk to you about in reference to Dylan Hall.
Thank you, Mrs. Hall.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Egbert. I'm the head diving official of the state, and I run all the diving in South Jersey. I'm speaking in behalf of Dylan Hall, who's a fine student athlete. It's unfortunate that his sport is not represented in a team fashion, which certainly is not his fault in any way. And I'm concerned that when we have a hard time maintaining diving as a sport, only in the state of New Jersey. In all the other states, it's supported heavily. It's not involved as a team, so there's no points going one way or the other. We tried to get a team situation from the NJSIA, but we couldn't get that through. We'd like to see that happen. However, in this case, Dylan Hall is probably the 4th best diver in the state of New Jersey, which is pretty good because divers from New Jersey are well represented around the country. So I just say to you, if there's some way that you can do something maybe on a special basis and maybe think about other kids who I understand are trying to do the same from your Cherry Hill West, I think it would be good for the sport, and it certainly would be good for the students, which is what I've always thought about. And I've been coaching diving for 50 years. I'm a certified U.S. diving coach. That's really what I have to say, and I hope in some way you can alleviate his problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Egbert. Anybody else? No? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn? Mrs. Judge, Mrs. Scarpolino. Good night, everybody. Thank you. Happy holidays.